Hi everybody, Dr. Pingle here with the applied lesson on visual hierarchy. So I've done a quick Google search here for visual hierarchy just to demonstrate the concept that visual hierarchy is not unique to geography or cartography. It's actually used in a wide number of fields, including graphical design. So if we take a look at the images, you can see some nice examples of that in applications other than maps. Although if we use something like visual hierarchy map, you can see some nice examples. So to illustrate the concept within ARC, what I'm going to do is download some data. So I've downloaded the cultural administrative level 0 data. So these are countries, and I've downloaded the ocean layer here as well. And what I want to do is make a quick map of graduated circles by population. So let me get rid of these previous versions here. I'm going to unzip both of these layers, so my country layer and my ocean layer. So we'll extract here. So this is my countries, this is my ocean layer, and I'm just going to drag these into ARC. So grabbing the shape file here and bringing it in, and grabbing the ocean layer there and bringing it in as well. So we've got a map of the world here. One of the things that I want to do quickly is project. Remember, you don't really want to use just your base projection, the unprojected coordinates. So we're going to go into the coordinate system here and use the Robinson projection, which I've got saved as a favorite, but you can find under projected, world, and Robinson. So let's apply that out. We've got a nice compromise projection here. Looks a little bit better. We're going to do some quick tweaking here with the colors. Looks like countries came in as green. We'll start that off as beige. That's fine. And we'll just position this on top. Okay, so let's zoom in just a little bit here. All right, so we want to visualize countries by area, by population. We have a population layer in here. So if we look at, the attribute table, we've got a field scrolling over to the right for population estimate. So that's here. You'll notice that we have a couple of -99 values. This is very typical in a GIS data set. So -99 here is being used to denote no data. So we're going to want to factor that in. So I'm going to leave my base layers here down, and I'm just going to copy and paste that layer back in here. And I'm going to rename this, double click here. I'm going to rename this population. Great. And I'm going to change the symbology to graduated symbols, and we're going to use population estimate. Now, in another lecture, we'll talk about better ways to divide these categories. I'm going to ignore that problem for now. We can set our symbol sizes from 4 to 18, so that's the default value, which is what I want to leave it at. And we're using a natural breaks classification, which again, I'll leave it at for now. Those are all things we can get into in another lecture. So we'll hit OK. And one of the things that's happened here, we've got all of our layers have turned pink. What we might want to do, let's see if we can figure that out. Okay, so we've got our background layer here as pink. We can change that back to beige. Great. And that means we probably didn't need to create a copy here, so we're just going to remove that out. So this is not that dissimilar from the map that we looked at in lecture. So this is an example of proportional, or in this case, graduated symbols of a map of population, or of mobile homes rather, in California. So what we want to do here is think about different ways that we can enhance the symbology to enhance the visual hierarchy And to do that, let's take a look at our layout. So first of all, notice that we've got sort of a disconnect here between the orientation of our map, which is sort of left, right, elongated, and our page. So maybe the first thing that we want to do is work on our page size. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to a custom size. So we're going to make the width, let's say something like, well, common screen might be, we'll just use page sizes here, so 8.5 by 11. We could have changed this by a landscape here if we wanted to, but we'll scale that in there. Great. And then our data layer here is misaligned, so we're going to change that. We could do this sort of by hand and grab the edges and move this around, and we'll get a reasonably good fit there. And maybe we want to zoom in on that element, so we'll hit full extent here and get it a little bit bigger. You'll notice that 8.5 by 11 doesn't really fit with our the size of our picture here. Again, we're going to leave some of the larger concerns of cartography. We're going to have to approach them piecemeal here a little bit, but let's worry a little bit about visual hierarchy. So I'm going to insert title. So we're going to say population of the world. Well, let's say population by country. Be a little bit more specific. Great. Okay. So this is a pretty good example, and maybe we want to do insert a legend. And we're not going to do all of the things that we could do. Let's get rid of this ocean. We're not too worried about that. So this should just take a second to come in. We've got border and background options. For the purposes here, we're just going to leave that as default. Okay, so this is a map of population, and there are a lot of things wrong with this. I really just want to focus on elements of visual hierarchy. We'll get into some other things that are going on with the legend here in another lecture. But we've got a lot of things. So first of all, we've got overlap here that we shouldn't have. Our title is way too small for what we have, and there's too much going on color-wise with our image. So our thematic layer is not standing out particularly well. So let's talk about things we can do to improve visual hierarchy. And the first is the easiest. We can change the size of that title. So there are different ways you can format text. So you can come in here and you can use these sort of HTML-like tags to change the size. So we've got one here that says font that we can use to change some of this stuff. So here's an example of how you might use that. You could say font name equals Arial, size equals 12. If you're into that, if you want to scale it in particular ways. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into change symbol, and here you'll get an option here to do the font type that you want. So Arial's maybe not the greatest. Let's use something like Calibri, and we're going to change the size of this to something really big and bold, maybe 48 point, and we'll hit apply. So now we've got our title sort of scaled a little bit better, right? It's bigger. We said the title is one of the most prominent elements, and now it's one of the most prominent elements on our map. Let's move this down just a hair. Great. And let's see if we can adjust the symbols here to make this a little bit nicer. So first of all, we've got this 3 colors going on here, but if we look back to the example that we saw in lecture, we've got a nice example of using color to sort of pop out the thematic layer and let everything else kind of drift into the background. So we can do that by changing some of our colors here, and instead of using a fill color with sort of a color, let's see if we can maybe just do something like a light gray. And that might even be too dark, but sort of probably we'll take a couple of cuts at it here. And we'll go back into our symbol layer, and as a background here, maybe we want to make that hollow or Better yet, let's just make that white for now. Okay, so now we've added sort of some interest to our map. All of the rest of the sort of orientation information that we don't particularly care about. We're not really interested in the oceans. We're not really interested in the countries. So we want to kind of fade that off into the background. If we wanted to enhance that a little bit, we could do things like change the background to have an outline color that is not black, right? So that's probably a bit strong, and we could get away with something, maybe a 40% gray to improve that a little bit. We'll hit F5 to refresh. Nope. Something looks like it happened here. Here we go. Let's try that again. Okay. Sometimes you get these mystery things that happen, and you just sort of have to work your way through them. Okay, so I've added sort of a lighter gray to be our background here, and again, just de-emphasizing that country information. By the way, we had downloaded this at very high, relatively high resolution, and so maybe we would have been better off getting something like the small scale data to do this with. In fact, let's bring this in here now really quick. We'll get a quick look at that. So we're going to download the same information just at a lower resolution. And the reason we might want to do that is we have this kind of blotchiness that's happening where the intricate coastline kind of doubles back on itself. So let's unzip this at a different resolution. So this is at 1 to 110 million. And we'll drop this back in. Great. And what I'm going to do here, we're going to put this on top for just a second. What I want to do here is we're just going to go back and import from our population layer. So we don't have to redo all of that work. We can just sort of crib off of a previous layer. So now we're using the 110, 1 to 110. Some of this sort of blotchiness has gone away. Looks just a little bit nicer. We've got a couple of other odd things that are happening here that might be distracting. So one of these is we've got a data point here for Antarctica, and you can see that this is showing up within our data set as negative 99, indicating no data. So what we might want to do is do a quick definition query on population estimate. So we want to only use values where the population estimate is greater than 0. And what that's going to do is that's going to eliminate data points for places where we don't have any people living. We might have to go back into the symbology and recreate this. That's great. Okay. So now that we've reselected this, you can see that we're back down to 140 to something else. We're not going all the way down to negative 99. So we'll hit apply. And that's great. We still have a data point for Antarctica, which means it must be counting some people there. We could take a look at that attribute layer. There are people that live in Antarctica, just not really full-time residents. So there's our layer there. We'll just take a quick look and make sure nothing strange is going on. There's our population estimate right here. So we do have a number that's on the list there. So that's a good value, or at least it's good enough. So we're going to unselect that feature so we don't have the blue. Okay, finally, we want to make a quick adjustment to the legend. Now, visual hierarchy is really only concerned with the placement and the size and the prominence of this. One of the things that makes this legend a lot bigger than it needs to be is it has extra stuff in it. So it's got the word legend in it, it's got pop est in it, and the number of decimal places here is way too many. So this is a common error that people make when they are preparing a map. They don't know how to change this around. So now is not a bad time to show you how to fix that. So we're going to go into properties and take a look at the symbols. these are our graduated symbols, and we've got a label right here. What we want to do is format these labels. They're already set to numeric, and what we want to do is set the number of decimal places down, and we're dealing with population here, so we only really need 0 decimal places. There aren't any partial people that we're counting, so we're going to leave that alone, and we're going to include the 1,000 separators here as well. So if we hit OK, our labels are going to look quite a bit better, and you can see that we've shortened this up quite a bit. It's not bad practice to go in there and to choose these label classes in a way that further makes this easier, right? These are based on natural breaks, so you could go in there and you could set this to 20 million to 60 million, and so on, and sort of make this a little bit easier on the eye. But this is fine for now. That's a topic for another lecture. We might, though, want to do one last thing, which is we've got legend and pop_est. So let's see if we can change that around a little bit. We've got an element name here. If we go under the legend items, actually, here we go. We've got a title that says legend and show. We don't necessarily need that, so we can hit apply. That gets us down to showing something that just says pop_est. And if we want to change that around a little bit, we can change the formatting so that it looks a little bit nicer. Okay, so we're going to go under items and symbol. Oops, sorry. Items, and double click on that item. Now we've got some options here. We can show the layer name, which we're going to take advantage of here in just a second. So if we check that and hit apply, you can see that NEU_110 million and so on comes up. We're actually going to use that to our advantage here in just a second. We can double click on this. We can get rid of show labels. So that's going to get rid of those. We obviously want to keep those. Oops. We'll turn those back on. And let's uncheck show heading. And that makes that pop_est go away. Now the reason I wanted that to go away is that you can rename columns in ARC. But if we just have this, one of the nice things that we can do is we can click on that and get to the point where we can rename that, and we can just say population. Okay, so that is one easy way to do that. We could have just as easily come in here and relabeled that population. Oops. And kept the other way around. In which case we'd come back again, properties, items, and here we would uncheck that and show the heading. So you can either rename the sort of data layer, or you can rename, here we go, or you can rename the heading. It's up to you, but 2 easy ways to sort of keep track of that. Okay, so here I'm using the lost track of it there. Here we're using the heading rather than the layer. Okay, this is probably getting fairly close to where it needs to be in terms of visual hierarchy. We could probably do some work to simplify the number of categories. So we have 5 categories right now. Maybe to improve this still further, we might want to do a thing where we make this 3. All right, sort of a small, medium, large. We've got a big range there. But graphically, notice that there isn't a world of difference between this image that you see and this one. There's a little bit more resolution in this image, right? We've got 5 categories versus 3. But these are all coming at sort of a cost here. 4 might be a nice compromise. So explore with the number of categories. Explore using different numbers of categories to try to emphasize the story that you're trying to tell. Okay, let's do one last thing here with the legend. We want to add a background to it. So let's see if we can change the background value to something a little more striking. separate it from the rest of the landform. That doesn't look spectacular. Let's see about maybe just white might work just fine. And maybe we'll throw a little bit of a border on it as well to make it pop out. Oftentimes you might want a little bit of a gap. We'll try a 5-point gap here. That's going to stretch that out a little bit. You're going to want to make sure that you similarly add some background gap as well if you're going to do that. Okay, so this is not by any means a finished map, but it is a map that we've used the principles of visual hierarchy to scale some of our map elements that we're using all the time so that they make a better visual impression. So we increased the size of the title. We changed the colors of the background information. We used white and a gray to sort of add a figure ground. And then we reserved the use of color for our thematic symbol to make that pop a little bit better. And we did a little bit of work sort of massaging the legend so that it doesn't take up any more room and is as the least amount of distracting as is possible. So hopefully that gives you some idea of how to apply the lessons of visual hierarchy within ARC, and we'll see you at the next lecture.